Hi guys! So today we're going to be seeing what Tarot has to say about Tyler Durden. Brad Pitt plays him in the movie Fight Club. It's also a book that I really enjoyed. And while I'm shuffling the cards, I'll just give you a quick synopsis of what Fight Club is about. Basically, it follows the main character played by Edward Norton. And he struggles from insomnia, anxiety, and just basically general existential dread. And he goes to these support groups to try to feel alive and feel a sense of community. He's deeply lonely and kind of a little mentally ill. And he runs into this charismatic guy, Tyler Durden, who's played by Brad Pitt. And this Tyler Durden guy he's like an anarchist, and he's charismatic, and he forms this underground club called Fight Club where men get together and basically beat each other up to feel alive, to feel connected, to feel that masculine power that they feel like is missing from their lives, right? It's a way for emasculated men to feel empowered is Fight Club. And then over the course of the movie, this Fight Club turns from an underground boxing ring into an anarchist group called Project Mayhem, where these guys now have totally bought into the anarchist ideology of Tyler Durden, and they're fuck the system, let's tear it down. And they basically plan to blow up the city. And Tyler is discovered at the end of the movie that he's actually a dissociative identity disorder, part of Edward Norton, the main character. Anyway, so that is the summary of the movie, and let's see what Tarot has to say about Tyler Durden. All right, so the first card here we got is the Reversed Emperor. I love it when Tarot does this. This is the perfect card to represent Tyler Durden. He is toxic masculinity incarnate, right? The Reversed Emperor, upright, the Emperor is all about, masculine energy, power, dominance, control, rule, structure, order. When it's reversed, this masculine energy is toxic, it's corrupted, it's blocked, right? One of the questions that Tyler Durden is always posing is, what does it feel like to be a real man, right? Let me take a punch, let me bleed, let me suffer, because through suffering, I am now reaffirmed my manhood. Through suffering, I am now worthy of embodying this masculine energy. That kind of ideology, the idea that men have to suffer in order to be, valued men, is pretty much the definition of toxic masculinity, perfectly represented by the archetype of the Reverse Emperor.
I want you to do me a favor.
Yeah, sure.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Why?
Never been in a fight. You?
No, but that's a good thing.
No, it is not. How much can you know about yourself? You've never been in a fight.
The other thing about the Reverse Emperor is Tyler Durden's lack of control throughout the entire film. How he asserts physical dominance and fear and control, use violence as a way to assert respect and gain influence over the group of individuals that have joined Fight Club.
After fighting, everything else in your life got the volume turned down.
If you would have died right now, how would you feel about your life?
I don't know. I wouldn't feel anything good about my life. Is that what you want to hear me say? Fine. Come on.
Not good enough.
Stop fucking around.
The other element of the Reversed Emperor is the emotional suppression. One of Tyler's ideology is that, we should be numb. It's almost nihilistic in a way. And this numbness, this detachment to our emotional connection is again further driven by this toxic masculinity that seems to be deeply entwined with his ideology and his philosophy. destruction, then we are free. It's this promotion of the idea that through violence, now we have become real men. It's using violence as a way to promote and validate manhood. Perfect representation of the reversed emperor archetype. Now, what is Tyler's main challenge throughout the entire course of the movie and the book? And I got the Knight of Wands. Now, the court cards represent either an individual or an element of our personality within ourselves. And when it's read in the challenge position, this is read as like a corrupted energy or blocked energy. So upright, the Knight of Wands, wands represent passion, ideas, creative force, vision, and knights are elements of our personality that represent action. They're the doers. So when this is corrupted, we see someone who has that driving force, has that driving passion, but that passion has been corrupted into something destructive. And when we combine that with the reversed emperor card, we see that his passion, his drive is to further and facilitate this corrupt emperor, this reversed emperor archetype. When we combine the Knight of Wands with the reversed emperor, we now see those two energies, how they interact with each other. We have toxic masculinity being fueled by passionate ideology and actions that are actually like proliferating destruction and proliferating demolition and self-degradation instead of the more positive elements of masculinity. So one of the biggest challenges that Tyler has throughout the entire film and the book is himself, is the own corrupted energy within himself, is his own personality, is the fact that he has this energy, he has this passionate creative force, as is represented by the wands, but the way that he directs his energy, the way that he takes that energy, that creative force, is used for something negative and not positive.
Gentlemen, welcome to Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
We see this manifest with the creation of Fight Club itself, right? This idea of how can I take my philosophy of toxic masculinity and turn it into something actionable. The Knight is always about an action card. So he takes this, reversed emperor, toxic masculinity, and he makes Fight Club. He makes Project Mayhem. He makes this group of dejected, emasculated men and it infects them with his passion, with his energy, with his ideology as represented by the wands. But it's not something productive. It's something destructive. It's something that's not healthy. So this is how we would read the second card in the challenge position. Fight Club provides this outlet for not only Tyler, but other men to channel their frustrations and really reclaim a sense of power and masculine energy. They're all trying to cope with this blocked energy by turning to violence as an escape mechanism, which ultimately leads to greater recklessness, greater destruction, as represented by the Knight of Wands reversed. That energy starts to evolve over the course of the movie, and Fight Club doesn't just become Fight Club anymore. Now it becomes Project Mayhem. Project Mayhem is basically like, you would almost call it like a terrorist organization, but it's basically where they take that ideology, they take that violent, toxic masculinity out of the basement and now into the real world. Now they want to share this idea of disrupting societal structures, tearing down societal framework. They want to escalate the impatience that they're feeling around the societal constraints. They want to break free, very much this reckless, passionate, reckless energy. Project Mayhem is a way of harnessing the corrupted energy in the reverse Knight of Wands and directing it outward, not just on his followers, but on society in general. So that energy, this Knight of Wands passion, again, it's very destructive when you couple it with the toxic masculinity of the reverse emperor. And now it's starting to affect and infect those around him. Right, so how does Tyler Durden begin? How is he introduced in Fight Club? And I got the sun. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. He meets Tyler on the beach, and it's like bright, blinding sun. And the sun card represents, you know, positivity, warmth, vibrancy. This is the energy that Tyler is born out of. He is charismatic, he's attractive, he brings the brightness, he almost like illuminates the path for the main character, for Edward Norton. So the sun card is not just talking about the scene that we meet Tyler or his genesis, but it's also talking about who he is, what attracts us and the narrator to Tyler in the beginning, what makes his character in the movie Fight Club. And a lot of it has to do with this sun energy, radiating, charismatic, you know, magnetic. That is absolutely his character. And in the beginning of the film, especially, this is the energy surrounding Tyler Durden that attracts his followers and the people around him. Now, in many ways, symbolizing the archetype of the Hierophant, Tyler himself is a preacher. He is a teacher. He is a leader. And even though he is anti-establishment, he very unironically forms his own establishment called Project Mayhem. You know, very much let's buck the system, let's not be fixated on institutions and material drives. That's a huge tenet of his philosophy, of saying, okay, now instead of just not wanting to be part of a system, now let's add the violence and the domination and the negative emperor energy. Let's destroy the system. Let's put bombs in buildings. Let's form a terrorist group, right? So this is an example of how in tarot, if you want to enhance your readings, if you want to get a deeper level of the archetypes, take the two cards and merge them together. See how the energies like complement each other, or the archetypes try to illustrate another level of the story. What happens when you take someone whose personality is the reversed Hierophant? I'm free, I'm not going to be part of the system. And then you also add the charisma of the sun, someone who's magnetic and they have a following and people want to gravitate towards them. And then on top of that, the toxic masculinity and the violence of the reversed emperor. Now we're starting to get a very clear picture of who Tyler Durden is. By now, this is more advanced level of tarot reading. Now we're combining the archetypes. We're now layering the character and seeing more depth and nuance into the situation. Again, excellent example. Great cards. All right, the next card is to represent the characters around Tyler. Got the Tower. Very interesting. Now, the first scene that jumps out at my mind is, of course, at the very end of the movie, the buildings that are collapsing. That's a very literal representation of the Tower archetype, right? The destruction of the current paradigm, the rubble, the chaos, the calamity. But it's interesting that this represents the people around Tyler Durden. Now, the Tower can represent many different levels, and I'll take you through the different levels that are present in Fight Club. So there's the spiritual, the psychological, the individual level of the Tower, which represents the individual chaos that's going in the minds of the characters. And we see that very plainly in Marla Singer, for example. She's suicidal, she's self-destructive, she goes to these support help groups so that, she's just waiting to die. And then of course the narrator, he fantasizes about dying in a plane crash. He himself feels like his world is crumbling around him. And then, of course, the individuals who join Fight Club. Why are they attracted to Fight Club to begin with? They have this self-destructive drive. They're attracted to this chaos and this demolition of the self. So the Tower can represent, metaphorically, our internal destruction, our internal chaos, and that certainly is represented in the characters around Tyler Durden. But I think also on the literal level, the characters he orchestrates them, he leads them like the, reversed emperor would, a leader, toxic leader. He orchestrates them and he basically harnesses their inner trauma, their inner tower archetype, as they're all struggling with this inner chaos. He harnesses that pain and he turns it outward. Instead of being self-destructive, they now destroy the world around them. They now, instead of having the psychological tower on their internal landscape, they are now planting bombs in buildings and being a terrorist organization too. So in a lot of ways, when we look at the characters surrounding Tyler Durden, they're attracted to him initially because of his charisma, that sun energy, his vibrancy, his inspiration, and the other reason why they're attracted to him is again because of their own internal pain. They are suffering from this internal psychological, spiritual chaos and collapse in their own psyche. And then by following this toxic leader, they now destroy the world around them. All right, what is his ending? In the end of Fight Club, what is it for Tyler? How does his ending come? I got the reversed 8 of Wands. Now, the keywords associated with this is loss of control, chaos, being overwhelmed, and this absolutely talks about this, again, perfect card to represent Tyler Durden's ending at the end of Fight Club.
What is wrong with you?
What did you just call me? Say my name.
Tyler Durden. Tyler Durden, you fucking freak. What's going on?
What the fuck is going on here? This is crazy.
People do it every day. They talk to themselves. They see themselves as they'd like to be. They don't have the courage you have to just run with it. Naturally, you're still wrestling with it, so sometimes you're still you.
We should do this again sometime.
Other times, you imagine yourself watching me.
If this is your first night at Fight Club, you have to fight.
Little by little, you're just letting yourself become Tyler Durden.
You are not your job! How much money you have in the way?
Basically, they're standing in front of these high-rise buildings that they've rigged with bombs, and him and Edward Norton are standing there waiting for this destruction, right? It's ultimate chaos that's happening. And then the narrator realizes that Tyler Durden is not an actual, real person, but he's just like a dissociative personality from his own mind. And it's very explosive and chaotic. And the reversed 8 of Wands kind of is the accumulation of all of the chaos and the mess and the overwhelming energy that's pervasive throughout the entire film.
Wow! Okay, you are now firing a gun at your imaginary friend near 400 gallons of nitroglycerin!
Oh, Tyler! Tyler!
There's certainly a loss of control with his character. He realizes that he's let his mental illness, this dissociative identity, this dissociative personality that's manifested as Tyler Durden, run wild and generate chaos and have an influence that basically stole control from the main character. So Tyler Durden's ending in Fight Club is the perfect accumulation of the 8 of Wands reverse. Wands again are passion, energy, and the 8 is all about this chaotic mess that's now accumulated, and now this identity is destroyed, and the buildings have been rigged with bombs, and the narrator actually tries to rid himself of Tyler Durden by shooting himself in the head, by metaphorically killing himself. And so this chaotic and violent kind of accumulation of energy and direction and chaos is what marks the end of the movie and the final scene for Tyler Durden. Right, next card is, what is the wisdom that we can gain from Tyler Durden, right? What is the advice that we can gain from his character, positive or negative? The Magician. Perfect. What I love about this Midnight Magic deck is every single card has a different mushroom. And this one, the Magician, it's called Little Birds of the Woods, and it's psilocybe. It's a hallucinogenic mushroom, fitting for the Magician archetype. So not only is Tyler Durden an hallucination, I mean, now what can we learn? What is the wisdom here about the difference between a dream, following our dreams, versus following our hallucinations? What about actions and manifestation? How does that impact our lives when we follow our dreams versus hallucinations? What does Tyler Durden teach us? What is the wisdom that we can gain from, one, we admire his tenacity, right? His action, his drive, all of the things that is the archetype in the Magician card. Undoubtedly, when you couple the Sun and the Magician card together, someone who's charismatic, who's attractive, who's, you know, magnetic, positive, radiant, and they have drive and they manifest reality. But then again, this toxic masculinity is permeating these hallucinations and this charisma. So, you know, again, we have to read the cards together to get a more in-depth view of Tyler Durden in this situation. So although the advice is, you know, the wisdom here is really understanding the difference between hallucinations and your dreams. What is reality and what is an hallucination, I think. But also kind of differentiating between the dreams and hallucinations that are charismatic and bright and warm and vibrant like the sun, versus the ones that are toxic and destructive and deranged, right? How do we make sure that as we're navigating the world, that we differentiate between our longings and our desires and our philosophies from being unhinged and being disconnected from reality? You know, magic mushrooms are incredibly dichotomous, right? On one hand, they can be spiritual arbingers. They can take you to higher planes of existence. They can be used in many cultures as spiritual gateways, paths to heightened consciousness. And certainly Tyler Durden's character teaches us, because he's so philosophical, of his, you know, you're not your belongings, this anti-consumerism, very much in line with the teachings of magic mushrooms, right? That spiritual enlightenment, I think, is one of the wisdoms that he touts throughout this book and the series. I think that's one of the ways that we're so attracted to him. But on the other hand, is if you misuse this medicine, if you misuse or abuse the Magician card, you turn into this destructive hallucination. One where the narrator at the end of the film, he literally puts a gun in his mouth and shoots himself to metaphorically rid himself of the hallucination that's Tyler Durden, right? That's very destructive. That is not a good trip. That is not. That's deep mental illness right there. But so this is what is the wisdom, the dichotomous wisdom that we can learn from Tyler Durden's character.
It was on the tip of everyone's tongue. Tyler and I just gave it a name.
Gentlemen, Welcome to Fight Club.
Now, what's particularly interesting about the reverse emperor archetype and its connection to toxic masculinity. Now, Chuck Palahniuk, the author of Fight Club, has said that it's not that he doesn't believe in toxic masculinity, but that he feels like it's poorly defined. And I would agree. I mean, misogyny and toxic masculinity has very many shades to it. And I don't know if it's aptly defined yet, but if I were to define it, in my world, it would be the reverse emperor archetype. This is basically when we take those stereotypical masculine traits, that masculine energy, and we instead turn it into a destructive, negative, or corrupted element. So imagine, power, instead of using power for good, it's for destruction. Instead of protecting communities, you're now destroying community. Have dominance and tyranny and oppression over others. I think we all struggle with it because Tyler is so likable and his philosophy is so intriguing, right? I mean, he is played by the charismatic and handsome Brad Pitt, right? So it's like, what not to love? And the way that it's portrayed throughout the majority of the movie, we're seeing it from the narrator's eyes. And without a doubt, the narrator himself is a broken and emasculated man who's looking at Tyler through adoration and leadership. And you are the father figure that I wish I never had, that I never had, that you are the man that I want to be, right? The narrator throughout the entire film and books, he's got a very twisted view about what it means to be a man, right? And he like gets his ego stroked when he walks into work and he has a black eye and he's like, yeah, I'm mysterious. Yeah, I'm cool. He very much loves the air of intrigue that violence brings into his life, and it adds that excitement, it adds that level of emotional outlet that he hadn't had before. So in that way, it could be a very fascinating way of how toxic masculinity can actually be very attractive, and how, especially in the case of the narrator, how that charismatic philosophy and how the elements of violence and dominance attract our inner nature. I mean, if we look out throughout history of mankind, we see dominance and aggression and interrogation and invasion permeate humanity, right? There is that drive. Now, some call it masculine, but it's a human archetype, right? It's not limited to men. But that drive in man to dominate and have aggression over others. And in the culture of men, especially in the world of Fight Club, this is how you validate yourself as a man. This is how you validate your role in the predatory hierarchy of the ecosystem of the concrete jungle, so to speak. So it's very interesting how the narrator is fascinated and attracted to Tyler because of the combination of his charismatic personality of the son, but also how toxic masculinity and misogyny and violence is actually quite alluring. It's alluring and it's attractive. There's without a doubt, I mean, when you feel superior, when you dominated, when you have sequestered your enemies, right? You've taken a punch and you get back up. There's a feeling that we are attracted to when it comes to aggression. And we see the accumulation of this aggression, of this toxic masculinity at the end of the series. What happens when this violence, when this aggression, when this propensity for dominance is unchecked and unfettered, when it isn't confined by, the hierophant, right, which is structure and institution and order. Like, you can't just walk down the street and punch your neighbor in the face, right? The hierophant of society, the order and the structure of society, you're gonna get arrested and go to jail, right? What happens when you combine the lust for dominance and power and tyranny with that charismatic energy and that unchecked, unbridled restraints of bucking the system and without any reproach for institutions as a whole, you get the accumulation, which is of course the Eight of Wands archetype. Chaos, loss of control. What happens when violence exceeds its capacity for structure? And you get the Eight of Wands archetype. Loss of control, chaos, destruction. It's almost like the lust and the desire that permeates the reverse Emperor energy ends up taking a life of its own if it's not checked. And again, we see with the Magician, the drive and the delusion, the hallucination, continues down this path. And so when we see it from that point of view, when we see it from the point of view of this tarot reading, the logical conclusion of this movie and the book makes sense. It makes sense. Like, these are the energies that are around. This is the natural progression that it's gonna go. Because we are on a train and there's no brakes. We are now feeding off of each other's hunger and drive for dominance. And I think that's when I talk about toxic masculinity, that is in the context that I'm referring to. You know, there's a difference between being able to take a punch and you get back up and you can persevere versus seeking out someone to punch you, versus seeking out someone to harm yourself so that you can feel justified and powerful. That's, I think, the nuanced difference that is very fascinating to me in the nature of Fight Club. And this was a really fun exercise. I love how the cards and analyzing the cards and the archetype here in this tarot spread got me to think about Tyler Durden in ways that I had not thought or articulated before. You know, because it's so fun to see, like, especially too, the combination of cards. If, you know, for those of you that are learning how to read tarot or learning how to explore archetypes, being able to combine elements as a whole to see how they manifest in specific ways is a really fun exercise to get more specific and more accurate with your tarot readings, which is one of the reasons why I love to do character analysis like this, because it helps train my brain to think in multi-level, you know, cohesive elements where I'm now combining different aspects of these energies and seeing how they kind of integrate into the character, how they manifest in their actions and their decisions. So, you know, overall, this was so fun. I loved analyzing Tyler Durden in Fight Club. This was a great deck. Midnight Magic by Sarah Richard. Here's the deck. It's amazing. It comes in this nice box. It's a mass market deck. So you can, you know, order it on Amazon, you can order it online, it's very easy to get, especially if you're a mushroom lover. It's a great deck. But this was so fun, and I have some ideas in mind of the next characters that I want to do. I'm sure you guys can tell that I love villains. I love villains. I think they're my favorite. You know, in movies and film, I'm always so fascinated to kind of peel back the layers on villains. What makes the anti-hero tick? How do they bring such depth to film and books and movies? And of course, the archetypes in tarot do a wonderful job of adding to that depth. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was so much fun to make. And I will see you guys next week with another character analysis to help you learn tarot. All right, take care, everyone. Thank you. Bye.